Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Yosefa Fogel-Rubel, and this is One on One, Women Talk Torah, a series brought to you by Matan Women's Institute for Torah Study. Rabbanit Malka Bina is the founder and chancellor of Matan. She has a master's degree in Bible from Yeshiva University and taught in a number of distinguished women's Torah institutions. Rabbanit Bina was one of the first teachers in Israel to teach women Talmud and Halacha, at the same time imbuing her students with Zionism and a love for learning Torah. 32 years ago, Rabbanit Bina had a revolutionary dream to open a Beit Midrash for women to learn Torah at the highest levels, creating sought-after educators and leaders who would become change agents for women in Jewish society. Her dream was realized with the founding of Matan, the Sadie Renard Women's Institute for Torah Learning in Jerusalem. Since that time, Matan has expanded nationally with a major center in Ra'anana and branches all around Israel. Over the years, Rabbanit Bina has received a number of distinguished awards, including the Hadassah Women's Prize for her important work in advanced Jewish studies for women, an honorary doctorate from Yeshiva University for her lifetime achievement in teaching Torah to women, Emunah's Woman of the Year, and the Bonei Tzion Prize for outstanding Anglo-Olim who have contributed in a significant way towards the state of Israel. Malka was recently honored as a Yechirat Yerushalayim, a prestigious annual citizenship prize that has been awarded by Jerusalem mayors since 1967 that recognizes people who have made unique contributions to the city of Jerusalem. Rabbanit Bina, it is a pleasure and an honor to be sitting here with you this morning.
And I'm looking forward. I really think this is a very special new project that Yosefa is leading, and we're very happy.
I want us to jump right in. I have spoken in the past in all different forums about your background and your childhood and how that was formative for you. But I'd love to hear just a little bit about that, how you somehow connect how you grew up to the unbelievable work you've done as an adult here in Israel.
I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in a home with two parents and a grandmother. And the grandmother is something very special. My parents were also warm, loving. It was a nurturing environment. But my booby, the only of the four grandparents that I had, the other three were murdered in the Holocaust. And she, though, gave me such love and individual attention, I think, for all four, or maybe even more. And that, I think that gave me a lot of confidence. Also, there's the famous story I've told quite often about when I got my sitter and I came home. And of course, I went right to my booby because we were so close, really, in all our lives. We were very, very close. And I showed it to Booby. Look, I'm getting this sitter. It's so wonderful. Aren't you, excited? And my Booby, I look at her and she's crying. And I got scared. Why is my Booby crying? And she said, it's so wonderful that now in America, you're able to learn. I wanted to learn in the shtetl in Europe, in Rosvadov, and my father wouldn't let me. He says, du bist a Mädel and a Mädel tun nicht. And now that the world is changing and you're able to learn, I'm really so happy for you. And I think that also gave me impetus and gave me more motivation, right? My booby wanted to learn Torah, and she could only learn a little bit, but now I'm going to already start in the first grade, and we're going to learn Chumash, and we're going to learn Rashi. And also it was a very, as I said, nurturing environment in the home. I was the oldest.
Were your parents survivors?
Yeah.
They were survivors.
And my booby, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were
right.
all three and lost so many. My booby lost her husband at the beginning of the war. My father lost his parents, both parents. So there was a lot of loss. There was, but not sadness. There was a feeling of loss and siblings, many siblings, but not sadness. It was happiness. We had a lot of outings. Every Sunday was an outing. We went to the park or picnic, even on the side in the beach. We were dressed modestly, whatever, but, it was a family, very, very much a warm family environment, which always helps, I think.
Yes.
Nowadays,
raising healthy
people
children.
Raising healthy children. People are running and doing so many things that they forget the little things to do and playing games with. I remember the Parcheesi games or Sorry. We would play. And then when I needed help with my studies, all three, my booby less so, but my mother and father were highly educated in the Torah areas, less so in other areas. My father more in literature But, I could always go to my father for help in Limudei Kodesh. My mother knew Hebrew very well. So there was always this sense of it's important all you're learning and to excel, but especially Torah. Especially Torah, that's the pillar of our existence. And it's important to connect to Torah, to connect to Hashem, and to learn it well and thoroughly. That was already as I was in elementary school.
That was already encouraged in your house, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, and so as you grew up, you later went and studied for the year in Israel, post-high school?
Yes, I came to the Mechlala. I convinced my parents, because they thought I should go to a seminary in New York. When am I going to Israel? It's so far away. And people hardly flew in those days.
What year was this?
1967, right after the Six-Day War. And I almost didn't come because in June, I was supposed to be going. In June, May, right? You didn't know if Israel would still be around in July, August when I was, scheduled to go. But, we all, the whole community and all the communities throughout the world prayed for Israel and, said Tehillim, had rallies, and Baruch Hashem, we knew all the miracles of the Six-Day War. And in the end of August, I came to Mechlala. I had convinced my parents this was the right decision, that I could go to Israel and that I would see all the relatives and I would learn Tanakh where it actually took place. I wanted to come back after a year and teach Tanakh, teach Torah, and Jewish philosophy.
In the States, you had planned. It was very clear to you that you would come for a year and you would go back and you would teach in America. Absolutely.
And that I would also continue my academic studies in mathematics. I thought at least I would get an MA in mathematics, maybe higher, and at the same time, involve myself in Torah learning.
And what was the switch? How did you go from that plan to the plan that you stayed here?
That first year in Israel, 67, I don't know, my life opened up. I mean, it definitely changed, but more than just changed. I was a transformed person. I had always thought of Israel as someplace very special, but not, I'm going to live in America. But I came and all of a sudden, no, Israel's the right place. It's really the homeland. The Psukim and the Tanakh come alive. This is a land Hashem gave to Abraham for us to live here, not just to visit. And, so falling in love with Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, and the studies in Mechlala were on such a high level. Rav Cooperman taught us, Zatzal, and other great scholars. And I also fell in love with the Torah learning and the depth of the Torah and the beauty. And I realized that as logical and as sharp as mathematics is, and that's what kind of pulled me to it, but at the bottom line, it doesn't convey a deeper meaning. And I said, what am I going to spend all these hours learning mathematics when the real truth, the real essence of what God is, what life is, what the world is in Torah, not in mathematics. It just kind of gradually happened to me.
And then you stayed here and life continued on a new path here in Israel.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have to be tactful. My parents were not so excited.
I can imagine.
They were not so excited. I'm the oldest. They were worried I would set a certain path. And in fact, two of us are living in Israel, 2 in the United States, of the 4 children, 4 siblings. And so they were quite nervous about it. But then I told them not to worry. I'm going to be here only for 3 years. Now it was a 3-year plan. There was you got some kind of an equivalent of a BA, which only came 15 years later, but that's okay. So they liked that, the fact that there'd be a degree. So they calmed down.
This is like me selling Stern College to my parents because I told them I would become a doctor and I can get free tuition at Einstein once I finish my degree in Stern. I also didn't follow through on that plan.
Okay. Right. We sometimes don't follow through.
Yeah.
And then gradually I just, even when I told them the 3-year plan, deep down, I was hoping it would be more.
It was a lifetime plan.
But, when I spoke to them, I said, let's see what happens. And, if I, when I come back, I wouldn't say if I come back, I would say when I come back, I'll have a degree and I'll be able to teach and it'll be, and I'll continue my college education, whatever it was. I did want my parents with me. I didn't want, they had gone through so much in their lives, and I didn't want them to feel that I was pulling myself away from them. I wanted to do it together with them. The same thing also regarding my husband. When I introduced him to them, I basically was on the phone or via the aerogram because they didn't come to Israel. They thought, okay, she's now definitely going to live in Israel and she's marrying someone who's going to learn in the kollel for 5-6 years, which was a little hard for them. They were not people of means. How would I live in Israel? But I always used, I think I tried Sever Panim Yafot to talk, of course, with warmth and with respect and with caring to my parents. Mm-hmm. And then when my mother finally did meet my husband, she came to Israel. She was also enamored with him and agreed to the match, agreed to the shidduch, even though they knew that it it would be hard for them. It would be hard for them, and it was. I have a cousin who lives in Maryland, had a child the same age as mine. And I remember my mother once said to me on the phone, "I'm here with Sammy's baby, and I'm thinking, I don't think she had seen our baby yet, and I'm thinking I'm holding yours, my grandchild." So, but whatever they realized. My parents loved Israel. They were Zionists. They just felt, in practical terms, it was a hard place to live.
Yeah, I think also it was objectively a more difficult life, definitely back then. I want us to fast forward a few years to Matan, where Matan enters the picture, how that birth process looked for you and your involvement and where it went from there.
It started with a group of 6 women, myself and 5 women who were my students, around the dining room table of one of the women, Lily Weil. Now, what had happened, I had the year before given a course on women and the study of Gemara. And
a halacha course?
Yeah, a course in halacha. We traced the development of the halacha of women in Torah study, not only Gemara, actually, women in Torah study. And after, it was a 6-part series, I remember, at the end, we came to the conclusion that it was permissible. And there were even, right, this is about 35 years ago, and there were even, permissible and even Rabbanim who agreed and blessed thought it was something commendable. So I remember, one of the hands went up in the last session. So if that's the case, let's learn. And it was like kind of June, I think. And we said, okay, in next year, after the Chagim, September, October, we're going to have a class. And the woman Lily volunteered her home. Mm-hmm. And she says, I'll get a group of 5-6 women, which she did. And we'll learn with you Gemara. You'll teach us Gemara. I had told them that I had begun my learning of Gemara. Mm-hmm. In Mechlala, we didn't study Gemara line by line as a text in and of itself, but we did use it. We did check sources from Rashi and other commentaries in the Gemara. So I was a bit familiar with Gemara, and then I went on my own learning learning campaign in the evenings and with whoever I could get as a chavruta to enable me to learn Gemara when I realized that it was something that would complement. It's that Torah is one big whole. And part of that whole is Gemara, is Torah Sheba'al Peh. And I was missing that.
How old are you at this point?
Probably about 30-ish, late 20s.
So you already had children?
Yeah. I had little children. And I felt lacking. I I knew what Gemara was, and I knew the dialectic. No, you know about it, but I had really never.
It's in our DNA, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had never done it. I'd never done it, and I just felt the need, the urge. It was something inner within me, and so I began learning, and then I gave this course on the development of the halakha of women in Talmud Torah, and saw. In fact, this is a nice story. My husband came home once. He was looking for the Arba Minim in the Shuk, and he said, "I didn't find the lulav, the lulav that I wanted, but I found you a book." And it was a book written by the nephew of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Rav David Auerbach, who said that it was permissible for women to learn Torah. And he said, this is something that's wonderful. That someone it's so highly acceptable now agrees that it's something commendable for women to learn Torah.
And how did you move from that 6-woman class to having an institution? Again, obviously it comes in waves and stages.
I tell you, all of us felt the energies of that learning had to be shared with many, many more women. We just felt that. And as we, after the class, Lily would always invite us for coffee and cake. And we would start talking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to, for the 2 years we did this, we learned Masechet Ketubot and Masechet Sanhedrin. And in the second year, we began planning the opening for many, many other women to join us.
Was it clear to you at that point that you would be in charge, that you would be the head?
It was clear that I would do teaching.
Okay.
And that I would do organizing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Teaching and organizing. I didn't think of a title. I really didn't.
Right.
It was something.
It was still amorphous. You didn't know how it would take shape.
Yeah. And we didn't know how many students it would attract. Would it attract? I think we thought if we would get 30 students, it would be wonderful. And in our first year, we had over 100.
Wow.
For the different classes. We added, of course, in addition to Gemara, Tanakh. And we had over 100 students. So we saw that there was a great need for.
Was there any resistance? Did you meet any resistance in that initial stage, other than maybe internal?
I think. What do you mean internal?
I don't know. Maybe sometimes when we try and do something different or revolutionary, we have voices inside of us that express doubt or concern. Sometimes it's even greater than the voices on the outside.
Oh, you're right, but I don't know. I didn't feel that.
Great.
I felt this was the right thing. In fact, once I went to a panel discussion, and I know something about. They said, what you're doing is not dat Torah, and I don't know. I just didn't understand that. Why isn't it dat Torah? I'm learning Torah. And I'm spreading the learning of Torah. I'm involving other women in learning of Torah. More families, more communities are enlightened, have the energies of learning Torah. Why is that not dat Torah? And I remember going home and asking my husband, he says, who is she to say what dat Torah is? Does she know what dat Torah is? It was like, so that even my husband even strengthened. I'll give him, because he's really been a partner all the way. Yeah. That even strengthened me. And maybe that was that one little, maybe I had an hour of doubt.
Right. But you're saying, but largely you didn't feel internal and also externally
no, so
there wasn't.
External, I was just careful. I didn't go recruit students in Geula and Mei Sharim. Right.
Smart, strategic plan.
Right. Yeah. And the women who were my students were also, knew which students would be suitable and where to do advertising and, how to promote it in the circles where it would be highly acclaimed.
Yeah. As you describe the creation and institutionalizing of Matan as it came to be a force in the world, I'm thinking about how change comes to be. Sometimes change can be an evolution and sometimes it's a revolution. And I'm curious how you see those two categories as it relates to women's learning and women's advancement in spiritual leadership. If I can be a little bit reflective, when I'm sitting with you, and many people listening know Malka, but there's something so warm and soft, and as you said, always careful and always respectful. And I think that within you've created a revolution, but in a way that feels very much like it was an evolution. And I'm curious how you see those categories in both how change maybe is healthy in the world when it comes to women's roles in religion, and also how you've seen that play out in what you've done.
In addition to being careful and, what you speak about, Yosefa, that I do try to use tact and respect, warmth. But I also use logic. Logic is very important to me.
It's the math side coming
right,
in.
that math side. And I remember asking myself, why can't women learn Gemara? What is in the Gemara that's poison for women? Like as so many would say. I remember someone told me the story. I would tell you, and I would show you why women can't learn Gemara, but I'm not allowed to, because you're not allowed to see it, and I'm not allowed to teach it to you. So it's ridiculous. These things were so ridiculous. That's when I was in my maybe early 20s. It was also the same Gemara. A man learns it. He's extolled, and he's considered a wonderful contributing member of the Orthodox society. And a woman... And a woman doing the similar thing is considered as sinning, as transgressing, so to speak. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. I researched in the halachic sources. I researched and asked contemporary rabbinic authorities, and so there was a logic behind it too. And when you're really convinced of something, you're convinced that it's possible, it's good, it'll bring good to the world. Again, I don't know for sure, but I think it makes Hashem happy.
I think so too.
Yeah, okay. It gives you a good feeling. Now, at the same time, I think what people were, maybe Rabbanim were scared about, okay, women would learn, 10 hours a day, and then they would neglect their children, or they would neglect the community.
Rip off their hair covering. Yeah.
Right. That they would... and not daven enough, maybe, but, a person has to set her life with priorities. And then if you plan it out and you use logic and you use respect, and you prioritize, then there's a way to fit in a lot of things. There's a way to fit in a lot in life. And I felt this was something important. I felt strong about it. But in a way that I packaged it with pleasantness. I packaged it not just an outside packaging, and also with pleasantness, with a great benefit to the world. Mm-hmm. So I think when people see that how much benefit comes to the world, how many teachers, how many scholars have emerged from Matan, then I think they understand it a little bit better, and I'm able to do it in a way that doesn't seem like a revolution, but it is.
Right. And so exactly. And so how do you see that moving forward in pieces today, like women serving in rabbinic positions, or even changes in prayer structure, which are the hotter issues today, and that I think are also natural outgrowths to a world that has come to see women as much more present in the Torah world. And so how do you take that approach and see how it fits into those sort of changes?
What Matan is doing is creating the possibility, creating the grassroots structure for it to happen. Now, the rest of society has to go along. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain establishment element in Israeli society and in the American rabbinic society that's meanwhile, I think, a little hesitant, maybe not fully sure that this is the right thing. It has to happen slowly. I think as more and more people see the value and see the benefit, more positions will open. And again, slow. Also with our learning, it was slow. I think that both in Israel and in America, and it's happening. It's happening. More principals and senior faculty should in women's schools and even in co-ed schools should be women, and there should be a man there also, but not necessarily the principal or not necessarily the Rav of the Beit Sefer. I think they're
right. Women's ulpanot with a male head is a funny situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And also in even elementary school, if there's a girls' school, there should be a Rabbanit. There should be a Rabbanit. There should be women at the helm of women's and co-ed institutions.
I want to stop you on that point about school, because I often also struggle with this myself as I think about it for society, also for my personal family. But how do you view an ideal educational track for young women, meaning so that women don't come when they're 18 today, let's say is the scenario, or in their 20s. And there's always going to be people who will discover things later in life, and that's wonderful, and everyone has their own journey. But if we're looking lechatchila at young women, how would you like to see their textual education? How would you like to see that develop?
I only opened a Gemara, I think when I was, maybe 25, maybe a little bit earlier as a source for another commentary. And I think, why shouldn't it be at the same age that men do, that boys do, at the age of 11 or 12, whenever it's, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, if there's maybe less hours, a few, but there should be a serious Gemara learning if there are other things that have to be studied as well in the girls' curriculum. But it should be a subject, as it is in several of the schools in Israel nowadays, and that there be a track that enables the women to continue. If there are those girls who don't want, and they would rather do Tanakh, would rather do a halacha, fine. Gemara is
as a sidebar, all of this education is under tremendous shift and change also on the boys' side at this point, meaning there's a lot of difficulty that the current generations are having with this. So putting all that on the side, meaning I recognize it very much also being involved in the school system. But you're saying that it should be parallel, meaning there shouldn't necessarily be a difference. If we deem that a child in the 5th grade is old enough to be exposed to Gemara learning, so it should be a similar process for young women. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't, why not?
And regarding those that graduates of the Hilchata program, for example, Matan, which is an advanced study of halacha, at the end of which women come out with the title of
Meshivat Halacha, a halachic responder.
Yes. And where would you like to see them serving in Israel? What sort of functions would you like to see them fulfilling?
As I mentioned, the Rabbanit of a school, I think, and we do have several in the Pelech school, Rabbanit Ayelet Segal, and in other schools. If they're boards of schools or Batei Knesset, organizations like Beit Hillel, there are many women in the directorate. And, but what is happening already with the graduates of Hilchata, we had a first cohort has finished, is that they're writing Piskei Halacha. They're writing Tshuvot. They've mamash really excelled in their learning and their methodology, and they're asked questions in the reality, in what goes on day-to-day life situations, and they're able to research and write a full psak. That's
and where are they publishing?
We have online website Shaila, and in other journals, in other halachic journals, and there's also on the Beit Hillel has a
they have an online they have an online
right. So
platform.
Many of the women writing are our graduates writing the Piskei Halacha.
So Be'ezrat Hashem, in the future, we'll be seeing more women filling spiritual leadership roles in schools and in communities. And I'm also interested to hear where you would like Matan to go in the future. Where do you see things moving from here as an institution?
We didn't mention the branches of Matan. And I always say that Matan goes on 2 poles. We have the up and down, the depth, and then we also have the breadth. And both are important to me. when we spoke about the Hilchata program, the Eshkolot program where you teach, Yosefa. These are programs that produce leaders, that produce scholars, that produce women of the first tier in Torah scholarship and as educators.
In Israel and throughout the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's limited to, I don't know, maybe over 32 years, it's limited to 1,000 women, right? Now, Matan could really reach, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, like we had with Yetziat Mitzrayim. There were a lot of people, right? It wasn't, we were a big nation. And we're, now with the Zoom and everything, we're so all together. So I think this idea of a Matan style learning, in depth, with inspiration, with clarity, with thoroughness, I think that should be in every community. In some communities, the shoals organize it, but it should be, once a week, a few shiurim should be offered to all the women in all communities all over the world. Now, that's just something very hard technically and financially to organize, but I think they should take the Matan role model, take the Matan mode, and copy it. Matan can't do everything, but we would like to see this type of learning available, and to men as well. First of all, to all women, but to men as well. And many times now with the Zoom, I look on and I see that there are men who are joining. And
yeah, I have more this year in my class through the Zoom, I think, than I had in previous years.
Yeah. So that's wonderful that men also see it's a beautiful combination of traditional learning, spiced with academic, spiced with original creative ideas. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I hope.
Yeah. That has a special flavor about Matan, that has a cutting edge to it that I think you don't find in many shiurim in other places.
So you're saying that from your perspective, you want everything to be bigger. You want it to be more global. You want to see establishment and interest, which I would say is a newer challenge, that young women will want to be interested in this kind of learning, which sometimes I feel worn down by the changes that have happened. I believe that things come in waves and that women will be interested. Sometimes I wonder though, in another 30 years, how many women will want to be?
See, at your age,
I'm a little bit older. I'm already speaking. I'm a little bit in between.
No, but I'm saying, but when you're raising the children, it is a little bit harder, right? I mean, there should still be interest, at least to one shiur a week, the in-depth shiur a week. But it's harder. It's harder at when one is raising one's children. I mean, just this inspiration came to me, and this feeling that I had to do it, even when my children were young. But not everyone,
Yeah, I think I'm really also speaking about younger girls today, not my peer group, but younger girls today, in the world we live in. That depth and breadth is not really the name of the game at the moment. But I don't want it to cry all of reality. I think that things will shift, and there'll be great things that'll come, and we just don't see it right now. But for the future of Matan, you wanted to see that it really will grow in the world, that'll become a standard for learning all over, that there'll always be a standard of depth.
Right, and that also the more leaders and more educators and more scholars, more poskot halacha from Matan, and that we'd have to enhance and enlarge our Beit Midrash. And maybe a few more. We have one also in Ra'anana, a wonderful big branch headed by Rabbanit Malka Bina. And there should be other cities with Batei Midrash, not just shiurim.
Yeah, they definitely should.
Yeah.
Rabbanit Bina, can you share with us the text you brought for us today? You've brought a text from Sfat Emet from Parshat Truma. So we'd love to hear it.
Okay. So I'll read and then analyze a bit. And I just want to say maybe words of introduction that I spoke about my Gemara, my, race for learning more Gemara. That was from about 25, 30 till, I don't know, maybe for 25 years I had that kind of a urge and then all of a sudden I said I wanted something a little with Hasidut and with more directly to the neshama. Gemara also reaches the neshama, but it's a little bit indirect, a roundabout route.
It has to go through the mind in a very particular way first. Yeah.
Right. So I found the Sfat Emet. There are different Hasidic masters, and I found the Sfat Emet. נתקשה משה במנורה, והראה לו הקדוש ברוך הוא. ואחר כך כתיב שנעשית מעצמה, תעשה. אם כן, למה הראה לו? אך כי על ידי רצון האדם בלב ונפש באמת נגמר השאר. מה שאי אפשר לעשות, נעשה מעצמו. זה מה שכתוב, השלך לאור. כן הוא בכל מצווה, בכל איש ישראל. כי בוודאי אין כוח אדם לעשות רצונו יתברך. רק כפי רצון האדם נגמר מעצמו. מקום מקום הגמר בא גם כן על ידי רצון האדם. וזה שהראו לו לידה מכוון ורצונו יתברך. ועל ידי שרצה לעשות רצונו יתברך, רק שיהיה למעלה מכוח האדם. לזה נעשה מעצמו. So the Sfat Emet talks about the making of the menorah, which is described in Truma. And it uses there mikshe teaseh. With hammered gold it is made. It is made. It shall be made. And teaseh is really not used. I looked through the parasha there. Everything is vasita or taaseh.
Yeah.
And and you will make, and you will make, and you shall make. But it shall be made is something unusual. And Rashi brings from the Midrash, it shall be made because Moshe had difficulty. It was very difficult, if you're looking in the Psukim, how the menorah is to be made. 7 of the branches and the flowers and the kaftorim, very, very hard. And Moshe nitkashe, he had difficulty. How are we going to make it? And hammered from one piece of gold, you have to chisel with the chisel and hammer it. You can't put it together bit by bit, piece by piece, which is the more common way of doing it, right? So he had difficulty. And te'aseh, it shall be made. Don't worry, Moshe. It shall be made. It shall be made. You'll throw it in the fire and it shall be made by itself.
I mean, the passive word reflects the fact that Moshe was not the one who actively made it, but it was made for him.
It was made for him, right? But then at the end of the parsha, it says, and make it according to the pattern of the diagram that I will show you on the mountain. And that's also, I saw it's again in Bahalotcha, to make it exactly as I showed you on the mountain. So if it's going to be made by itself, what does Hashem have to show him and give him all the detail? Like it was, he had a menorah of Aish that was on the mountain, and that would be the diagram, and he would make it like it was shown to him. If Hashem anyway was going to make it, what did he have to show Moshe all the details and how it should be done? So what the Sfat Emet writes here is that really many times that's what happens. The final, we're told what to do, and we do it. And we do it. Yagata, you have to work hard at it. Right? Yagata, you work hard. But still many times, as hard as you work, that final inspiration, that final, what we call in halacha, the makeh patish, the final hitting on the hammer and saying it's done, it's finished, it's wonderful. When you feel a work of art, or when you feel an idea, when you teach your idea, when you feel it comes together, that final inspiration, sometimes Hashem helps us. Sometimes it's almost something almost divine or something special comes within us and gives us that way of thinking one step beyond. And now, so then why does Hashem have to show him? Because you have to, this Sfat Emet focuses on this ratzon, that you have to see what should be done. You have to know there has to be a diagram. You have to work at it. You have to work at it. Okay, so you're trying, or like you're trying an algebra problem. You're trying. You don't always get to the end. You're trying to fit out how the menorah, how to chisel, how to this. And here you still have it. There's still gold that's stuck that can't be chiseled out. It's not an easy thing, or the kaftorim.
So the human has to have that process of working at it, but then they'll be
working at it, trying it. But you're not necessarily, maybe sometimes yes, but you're not necessarily gonna get it 100%. But what Sfat Emet is saying is that, especially with the menorah, Hashem promised him, don't worry, it will happen. And many times, the Sfat Emet is saying, because the Sfat Emet so beautifully, if something is told to us, it's not only for Moshe and the menorah, it's for all of us and for all times. We're given an understanding into the ways of God.
Why is this text the one that you brought us? Where does this meet you in your personal journey?
I don't know. I've just seen that it's so true. It's so true and so real in life. In my own learning, many times I'm almost I get stuck, and then I don't know. I wake up, or an hour later, I think about it again, and some better idea comes to mind. So I sometimes I may think it's like some kind of a divine inspiration, or Hashem helping me to understand. Like, I did work at it. I put my hours in, and not only in learning. Matan, being at the helm of Matan is a job that has a lot of responsibility. I think there are 60 or 70 people working for us in teaching and administrative positions, and to make sure that there's a budget, and that we cover our budget, that we have the finances, is not an easy thing. And many times I go, oh, no. And I work very hard, and a certain foundation or a certain donor that I thought the team, we expect it to come through, and then it doesn't come through. Then the next day, something will come from another source.
Yeah.
Hashem wants us, Yagata. Hashem wants us to put in the effort. And many times he sees that effort, the Sfat Emet talks a lot about the ratzon. Here he doesn't use the word shukah, but the ratzon, that there's a really sincere and genuine desire of the person to do ratzon Hashem, to do the will of Hashem, to really build the menorah in the proper way that Hashem would like, to run Matan the right way, to learn, to understand, to know what we're doing. And we do it as well as we can.
Yeah.
And what the Sfat Emet is saying, that Hashem will come in and give that little tap, give that little makebe patish, and help us and help us get to a fullness and a completeness of understanding, or of fulfilling our mission, fulfilling our responsibility.
I think it's almost a Hasidic response to the concept of kochi v'otzem yadi, right? Meaning sometimes when we take too much responsibility, it also is much more stressful, because if we think that everything comes down to how much effort we put into it, then we have to take responsibility, but we also have to be real about the fact that we're not in control of all the elements. So I think he really puts that pasuk in its proper, even emotional, spiritual place of do your work, but also know that you don't have the final word on what happens here.
Right. And I think this Sfat Emet, what he gave me was the sense of, don't worry so much. It will happen. It will happen. Again, we all worry,
Yes.
We're human beings, right? Yosefa?
I never worry. Right. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. We all worry, but this cuts the worry by 50%. That we do have this kind of a promise, understanding in how Hashem works. And in fact, I told Yosefa earlier, I came in this morning. I was looking because there's a beautiful pasuk in Tehillim, and that I wanted to find that also speaks about this, where David HaMelech expresses a similar idea, and I didn't remember where it was. And I said, well, I have time to go upstairs and look at the concordance and take it out. I don't know. Now, I had committed myself to say certain Pirkei Tehillim for the refuah shlema of a good friend. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, first let's say the Perek in Tehillim. Anyway, I say the Perek. It's Perek Nun Zayin 57, and there's the pasuk. The pasuk is Ekra leElohim Elyon leEl Gomer Alai. Mm-hmm. Right, I will call to the heavenly God, and God. One way of translating it is the God who is good to me, but the word for good that's used is gamar. Yes. God finishes for me. In one of the other sources where the Sfat Emet writes about this idea, he does quote the pasuk, Kel gomer elai, that Hashem will help me finish. Hashem will help me finish in the right way, will help me finish with full understanding, will help me finish with a work of art that's beautiful, with life, with filling responsibilities, etc., etc. Lakel ekra leElokim elyon, lakel gomer alai. And this morning, because I promised to say Perek Nun Zion, I said I found the pasuk I found the pasuk that I was looking for.
I love when that happens, and you feel like a little nod from above in those moments.
Right.
I totally understand what you mean there. Right. I wanted to piggyback on that piece that you shared to close this portion of our conversation. That with all of the building and beauty and change and development that you've brought to Am Yisrael, like all of us, you've also been met with challenge in your life, in your family life, in health challenges and other. And I'm just curious, what are some of the thoughts or the beliefs that you have that help you get through those times, that with, of course, having gratitude and having gratitude for all the work that you do and for all that you've done for Am Yisrael, how do you move forward or just survive well enough in those times?
Again, I think the big word is prioritize. When a crisis happens, you have to put other things a bit to the side, figure out what responsibilities, figure out other people who can take care of those responsibilities, and really give it 200%. Needless to say, tefillot and everyone else's involvement. And I think here this idea of this Sfat Emet also, we can just do so much. And the Ratzon and the Tshuka, and along with serious research into the illness, into or whatever other situation that you have to deal with, not leave it only to Hashem, right? Hashem says you have to learn it well, you have to know it well, and you have to work hard at it, and again, hope, keep that emunah. That there will be a refuah and other situations that need alleviation, and it's just like not letting it go, no despair. Despair is very difficult. Again, it's hard. It's easy to say, to feel that you're moving ahead. And I thought on a practical level is it's important to be in good moods. Even my husband was in a difficult health situation. I would go out and go shopping for my grandchildren, buy them clothes, in New York. They just little things to that you think about the good, as you said, you're grateful for the good. And while you're going through a difficult situation, to make sure, I don't know if it's someone likes a play or music, to combine and keep one's spirits up and faith and just I really think that this Sfat Emet, I saw it probably 15, 20 years ago. That's really been with me, and like as you said, that nod from above, or I somehow feel it, and thank Hashem for doing that. Even if I'm realistic, and I don't say that I think everything that's done to me is good. I don't say that because I think I've had very, very difficult situations to deal with, and I don't think they were good. Right, but I do thank for the good that afterwards came. I try to be realistic, but work at it, and get through it.
Yeah. Rabbanit Bina, to close off our conversation, I want to ask you the same questions I always like to end with. A little lightning round. You ready?
Okay.
What book is currently on your nightstand?
Sfat Emet. It's the truth.
Yeffe.
No, I also like humor, but right now I have Sfat Emet.
Yeffe. Who would you like to sit down with for a cup of coffee? Someone who is alive or not alive?
Devorah Haneviyah, who was also a shofetet and many other things. I'd really love to pick her brain and talk to her. She's a role model for me.
Beautiful. What is your favorite tefillah?
Kol Anshama Tehalelka Haleluka. And the entire psalm, that psalm.
From the morning tefillot.
Right.
What exotic location would you like to visit? You do go traveling a little bit pre-corona. I remember you always make an effort to go traveling in the summer.
Right. We go many times to Switzerland. I'd like to go to Spain. It's too hot for my husband, but and I do like to travel with my husband. So maybe Spain, I was thinking.
Okay. Something people think about you that isn't true.
I don't know. I don't know what people think about me.
It's, I think so far I realized the healthiest people are people who don't really know what other people think about them. I think that's great. I love that. I'm going to take that as a life lesson. Any hidden talents? A lot of your talents are obviously broadcasted to the world, but any that are hidden that we don't know about?
My kids will get a kick out of this. Organizing refrigerators.
Can you come over to my house? That is my job this week. I need help with that.
But they think I'm a little bit OCD, a little bit obsessive in getting everything in. I mean, we had many guests and we had a lot of food and I had to get it in. And maybe I went a little overboard.
If you don't know what the home edit is, I'm going to have to send you a video of them. I'm sure it'll put whatever OCD you had in perspective. As a final question, I'd love to hear, what is something that you're grateful for in your life right now?
I'm very grateful on a personal level that I've had a beautiful marriage with my husband. Getting emotional.
We're all here.
For over 50 years. And 5 wonderful children. Baruch Hashem. And also that I somehow had the inspiration and the courage, and I lived in the generation where women could learn more Torah. And I was able to be part of something very special.
I want to just thank you for being a woman of a different generation who has and still benefits from the foundation that you've laid for so many of us. It's a gift. Matan is definitely a home for me. It's always a place that I come back to in my heart. And I'm really grateful to you and to everybody who has made Matan what it is and what it will continue to be. It's a light for so many of us in our lives, in our Torah lives, in our relationship with God. And so I really just want to thank you.
It's wonderful. It's a big bracha. It's a big bracha to have such wonderful students and teachers and people that we work together with at Matan. It's like a team, really a team effort, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I'm Dr. Yosefa Fogel-Rubel, and this is One-on-One Women Talk Torah, a series brought to you by Matan Women's Institute for Torah Study. Thank you to Tzofia Vindish for producing this episode and the entire Matan team for their input. Please do One-on-One and Women's Torah Learning a small favor by sharing this podcast with family and friends so that we can reach new listeners. You can stream and download these episodes on Spotify, iTunes, and Matan's website, and write us any feedback at podcast@matan.org.il. That's podcast@matan.org.il. Thanks for listening, everyone.